The time is 5:33 p.m. and I will call the meeting to order. This is the September 8th, 2025 meeting of the Wakefield Advisory Board of Public Works. And in attendance, we have Shane and me, and then Joe, Bill, and Anna, and Chris Tarr is absent. Let's see. Joe, are you able to share the agenda on the screen?
Yeah, I'm just actually grabbing it. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, typically next is public participation though.
Okay. So
Yeah, I don't think
we
we
don't-
have any public participation, right? So we can ask, but I don't see any.
I am seeing nothing, and if we had something submitted, I'm sure Anna would have told me before I left the office for today, so we don't have anything in that regard.
Okay, so I guess we have opened and closed public comment, and we have no public comment.
All right. We don't have any minutes that we sent out, so we're good there. So I guess unless there's any objections, Bill and I will kind of jump right into the conversation we have for you, and we'll be as long or as brief as we need to be, and we'll kind of go from there.
All right, sounds great.
Sounds good.
Bill, you don't actually happen to have the agenda right in front of your face, do you?
I do.
What did we call this next item? ADU.
You want me to share it, or let me share quick. You guys can see that now? The agenda?
Yeah. If we just make it a little bigger, maybe. Let me see if
I can do that.
It's tiny on our screen.
Is that better?
maybe even a little more, possibly.
Is that good?
Yeah, it's funny. It's like,
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's,
it's
it's
on
a,
my side here. Here, let me do this.
It's
yeah, it's like
formatted
a
goofy.
Yeah, it's formatted because I have my computer sideways over here. That's why.
okay, yeah, because
That's
it's
why
taking
it's
up
this
only
way.
like a little
Yeah.
swath of the screen.
Yeah, so there we go. So that's what we have going on. New business. So starting construction standards and services discussion today is what
So
we're
sorry,
at.
Bill. Sorry, we're looking. I think we're looking at the home screen here, Town of Wakefield. We don't see the agenda.
Oh,
Yeah, we saw the agenda for a few seconds, and now we
Right, but it
see-
was small.
do a take two.
Okay.
Oh, you're good.
We'll try to take two on this one.
We appreciate you getting it. So
No
thank you.
worries. There we
One
go.
of these
That's
days
better.
we'll get this Zoom thing.
Oh,
There
there
we
we go.
go.
And now it's like the right
Hey.
orientation too.
How about that technology, right? Who knew? So new business today. We're looking at starting a discussion on construction standards, and then kind of our services and how we manage them. So, Elaine, I know you're pretty well versed, considering you wrote a set of these when we were in Concord back in the day.
Yep.
And we don't have really anything here. They're pretty. There was something that was done maybe in the 60s, but it was really limited. So it's been something that I've been trying to get staff to work on and for me to work on for a while. So we're really going to nail this down with the new ADU stuff that's going on. So we took this as the opportunity really just to nail down, kind of a couple of items. And what we want to do is get your feedback on how we do a few of these things. So,
Great.
so first one up is, I'm going to stop.
Hang
Do you have it, Joe?
Yeah, so I put together a quick PowerPoint. It's nothing fancy, but it's really just so I don't let myself get lost in what I wanted to say. Can you guys see what I have in front of me
Yes.
right now?
Good.
Do you want me to go into presentation mode, or is this okay?
That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, so not to cut Bill off, but pretty similar to what he said. We're looking to memorialize some things that we've done forever. And if they're written down that you're in, inconsistent spots. One of the things, as Bill said, he mentioned ADUs. So this is a little bit due diligence. And then some of the drivers here, as we're getting some questions related to ADUs. And sorry, that's my little guy. Okay, buddy. But we want to make sure that we have everything, written down so that people can search it and, do some of their own homework as they're permitting some of these projects. Timeline, like we talked about today, think of it really as like 30,000 feet. Just quick kind of break the ice on this, get a little bit of feedback. we'll consolidate kind of the temperature in the room. And then we're thinking we probably have a subsequent meeting where we'll, make this a lot more pretty and presentable, and then ultimately ask if we could get a vote, a recommendation from you folks. So I don't know if Bill, you want to take it and drive from this point and I'll run it, or however you
Um,
want to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, we can if you want to hop to the next one, Joe. So, so we looked at a couple of items. So this is probably pretty familiar to you, Elena. So one of the questions that we get a lot is on ownership between the water and sewer services that go to different dwellings. So we were looking to kind of confirm that within these new standards, one of them being ownership of the sewer service specifically, considering we run into a lot of issues where the service gets cracked, and whether it's within the right of way or whether it's within the private property. Our goal would be to have the entire sewer service be to be owned by the residents or the private property. Obviously, we can't get into the buildings and access them ourselves, so that's kind of the rationale for that. And then on the water service side, what we would be doing is owning it up to the curb stop and then having it be privately owned beyond the curb stop.
So, Bill, there's nothing in any bylaws or ordinances or
Nothing,
regulations, nothing that
nothing.
specifies at all? That's amazing.
It is pretty amazing. Yeah.
There may be, when this board was the actual Board of Public Works, and it was done in like the 60s. We can't physically put our hands on it. So really what Bill had gone through is basically what we've always defaulted to. We're just looking to illustrate that and write that down.
So, for how long has this been past practice then to handle each one this way?
Decades, I'd say probably the whole time I've been here, and that's been about 18 years.
Okay.
So it goes on, beyond that. Related to sewer, especially, I could give you some examples. So Bill had mentioned, one of the things with that one is we necessarily don't have any control over the maintenance of it because we have to get in to access it through private property. We've actually been in a couple of situations where we were the second phone call to an issue. And then come to find out we were doing a dig and fix because some drain professional actually broke their snake inside of our stuff. So we were actually going to retrieve 1/2-inch cable that somebody busted, being a little bit of a cow. So, ultimately it comes from every ratepayer that pays into this. Is it fair that everybody has to pick up, the time and effort it takes for someone's, actions that, create a negative consequence.
Okay.
So,
Okay. A couple of things that I would say to just be mindful of when
Mhm.
you're writing this up
Sure.
is on the water, it would be helpful to specify who owns the curb stop itself.
Yeah,
And
we would own that. Yeah, that
okay.
was the intent. Yeah.
Okay. And then on the sewer, specifying where exactly the delineation of ownership changes, like if there's a chimney, who owns the
Yep.
chimney?
Yep.
If there's a Y, who owns the Y?
Mhm.
Just to be, I would suggest that you be real specific because,
Yep.
those can be problem areas and you don't want to be arguing with the homeowner.
Yeah, our intent was that we would own the Y and we would own the chimney, considering
Okay.
that's like the access point to get to the sewer. So we were going to own those, and then everything for the actual main service that's going across, that would be what they
Okay.
own. So next
that's
one.
sewer. So then, I guess, on
I guess
water.
yeah, I was just gonna ask that too. So, I guess it's interesting in that the sewer, you said from the curb, but then the water is to the house. I'm just wondering the difference there as well.
Well, water to the curb and then the curb stop. So we have an ability to shut that off. That's the difference. So the curb stop,
Gotcha.
we're doing
Gotcha.
everything up to that curb stop. So we don't really have that
Gotcha.
ability, obviously, on the sewer side, right? So
Right.
that's the rationale behind it.
Thank you. No, thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, and Shane, for a little bit of sort of big picture background beyond Wakefield, I've worked in one community that had the ownership change at the property line and one community that has this arrangement here that Bill is proposing. That's Melrose does it this way and Concord owned to the property line on the sewer as well as the water. And the on the sewer in Concord, we had anytime somebody replaced a sewer, we had them put a clean out at the property line. That was part of our
Yep.
requirements so that there became sort of that ownership delineation between access to what the town now owned versus access to what the private property owns. But it can really be done either way. I mean, I would say in a lot of ways, I preferred the ownership changing at the property line and the town owning what was under the street. But that is definitely more expensive for the town. So there's an argument to be made both ways. I preferred it as like a town employee, not a resident. Um, I just liked the ownership change at the street because then anytime we were digging in the street, it was sort of, it was all our infrastructure under the street that we were encountering and dealing with. But, Melrose does it this way and it totally works too. So it's really a preference thing. And it sounds like Wakefield prefers this, so this is the direction we might as well go.
Makes sense.
Cool. All
So-
right, jumping to the next. So next one is starting to get into kind of configuration of how we're bringing utilities in. Joe, do you want to jump to the next slide?
Yeah, sorry.
Mhm.
Talking heads are in the way.
There we go.
Oh.
So this is basically for fire suppression services. So Elena, kind of thinking the same approach here, where we would have the gate valve as ownership to the town and the T coming off of the main, and then have the whole run be privately owned beyond that. Typically, we put those near the main, as you know. So that was the thought process here. But I mean, we could also look at where we put the valve. I'd be open to either putting it towards the back of the sidewalk or kind of keeping it next to the water main. But just trying. We do run into issues where the fire suppression lines have needed to be repaired. So I don't know if you've run into that yourself, but we've had a couple of those since I've been here. So
Yeah, it's interesting, Bill. In Melrose, we just specified this. It was never specified in our ordinance.
Yep.
And I think we landed on the private property owner also owning the valve, but
Oh, okay.
but we did the exact same thing and we prefer to have the valve in the street,
Yep.
right after the T,
Yep.
put the valve and then have the private property owner own the rest because these are typically larger service lines. And they really, I mean, they only serve the purpose for the private property. I guess the same could be said of the drinking water, but I feel like the drinking water is a little bit more of a sort of public good thing that the town needs to be providing, whereas fire service is sort of individual to the building to meet the code for that building.
Yeah.
So I agree that the private property owner should own the whole thing. The question on the
Yeah.
valve, I think, is kind of minimal.
Well,
The other
I think that's the question, though. 'Cause the way I was looking at it was, well, if we're putting it towards the back of the right of way, then we would own more of the actual service. That's basically the only difference from my perspective. But with it being a larger line, I think it makes sense to be closer in the street, so we can definitely get at it.
Yeah, and I think it also, well, I suppose you could mix it up with a valve for a line on the street, but I think it makes it also fairly obvious that that's the fire service valve when it's in the street, and then the domestic service valve is at the property line.
Cool.
The other thing with these two, so if you think back to like the rate setting process, obviously we have, service charges quarterly based off of, your meter size, which is really driven off of the size of the service that you have. And that contributes to a host of different things that we try to do annually. Right now, the way this is set up, so if you build a building that requires fire suppression, you would put in the line to meet NFPA and building code or whatever that is. And then that's it. There's no other, participation, from whoever might see this benefit. So, that's something that we're totally on the hook for, as far as making sure that, fire flow in the mains and everything is sufficient to carry it to these buildings so that they pass. They're not metered, right? So Elena, you know this, but if you have an instance where a property owner isn't doing the maintenance that they're supposed to be doing and they have a leak or something like that, there could be a water loss in there, potentially unaccounted for and potentially significant. So thinking about all those things, we limit our exposure, to a greater degree by having some sort of delineation and ownership. And this is kind of where we landed.
Yeah, I think
Now
that
the,
all makes sense.
now the fun ones.
Right. So multi-dwelling utilities. So this is when we're running into, the way we've been handling this is, if you have a one building that is a duplex or triplex or whatever it might be, we would have one utility service that's going in there for the building itself. If we have side-by-side units, we've historically done a configuration like you're seeing here. Obviously, this becomes an issue when we're talking about detached ADUs, and that's where I'm getting some pushback right now on how we're managing that with the permitting process. So what we were thinking is we would kind of mimic the way we do duplexes, where we allow for somebody to reuse a sewer service if it's there, or to go with one sewer service for the entire property into the main. With a kind of clean out manhole that is installed kind of in between, and then we meet our 10-foot setback from the sewer with the water services and have those go to the outside of each unit. So that's how we manage it historically, and what we're looking to do is to kind of mimic that with our ADUs. So if we slash to the next slide quickly, Joe. So you can see kind of this is the same thought process where we'd have an existing dwelling. The proposed detached would be where it is, and we would, allow them to kind of drop a manhole on top, connect to the existing sewer, and not jump through the building, because that's what everyone has been asking us to do. And I know that you and I ran into that back in the Concord days, and we kind of followed this as the model, and this is how we've done it here since I've been in Wakefield. So this is kind of the thought. Just looking for feedback if we think this makes sense as these projects come in. I've talked to our town council about it, and one of the reasons we look at this is for potential separate ownership. And Tom Mullen has determined that we can have these in separate ownership. So somebody that puts a detached ADU on their property could condoize this separately. So
Wow.
so we may have individual owners that would be in here. But obviously, with not having what we don't want to do is have the utility for the detached ADU jump through the building, because just from a maintenance standpoint, it turns into be very, very difficult for us.
Yeah,
It
I
ends up
think,
actually.
go
Oh,
ahead, Jeff.
sorry. I
No,
was
go ahead.
just saying there have been instances where side unit A and unit B have some sort of disagreement, and they often look to us to try to figure it out. And if we don't have some methodology to why we're doing what we're doing, if you daisy chain the two buildings together, that could essentially put us right in the middle of a problem that really is a private dispute at that point in time.
I agree.
Yeah, I think this is definitely the best configuration. It might be good to have some mechanism, some language to apply for a hardship condition um,
Yep.
if this isn't doable. And maybe also so even with this configuration, but even more so if they have a hardship and you allow them to go to daisy chain one to the other, I think if anything gets condoized, you should definitely require them to have a maintenance agreement in place between the two owners that of who maintains, the one from unit A to the manhole and the one from unit B to the manhole, and then the commonly owned service out to the street.
Yep.
Anytime we find these arrangements, I mean, we have some of these in Melrose that are like, and I'm sure we do in Wakefield too, that are one lot to another lot with a shared sewer
Yep.
where no one ever put any sort of agreement in place. And
Yep.
then there's a collapse or a backup, and then the owners are arguing over who owns what part. So, and unfortunately, even though it's totally a private legal issue, we get,
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys get roped into those conversations to weigh in. So,
Yeah, no, exactly. And so that we did plan on having kind of maintenance agreements, and I think I'd probably have something when we look at larger mains that are on other lots too, kind of similar to what we used to do in the old place as well. So that was the thought process. So I mean, I definitely agree with both of those. Hardship condition wise, I mean, we would probably handle that within our right-of-way permit, utility permit process in general. We typically would run that through me, and then they appeal up to Joe, and then if everybody disagrees, then it goes up to you folks. But I mean, in practice, I don't think we've ever had that happen at this point.
So here's a question. What if somebody has like a detached garage, like
Mhm.
my house, for instance, has a
Yeah,
detached garage?
yep.
What if we were to decide, not as an ADU, but just we want to add plumbing over there? We put the sewer going through the building sewer, and then, 5 years down the road, we want to make it an ADU. Like, are we better off saying even if it's not an ADU, even if it's just an accessory structure, we'd rather they tie in outside?
I think so. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I would think that's the way to go. Because
Yeah,
we would
because it
say
kind of,
honestly, if you jump through the house and you made this an ADU, we would require you to go to the street. That's how I would handle it.
okay.
Just
Yeah,
think
so
of, like, go back to the ownership part. Let's say down the road, your garage, and then you want to sell it off as a condo potentially.
yeah,
Now you get that situation again, just new that, the person out back comes through the front home underneath something of value where it could be a problem if it broke. And now they're interconnected in a way where it, could be very contentious, if it got to be in a bad spot and,
yeah. Yeah,
So
and I would say with the hardship thing that I mentioned earlier, I mean, typically that's going to just arise if they can't make the slope by gravity, if they're, 3 feet off the existing structure, but they're 100 feet from the sewer out front, and maybe they just can't make the pitch to get from um, the ADU out to the other one. Maybe they can request to tie through, but at the
I
same time,
mean,
you could also require that they pump it.
that's what I was just gonna say. I would probably require them to pump it. I mean,
Yeah,
you would definitely get the flow as long as it's not the end of a run, right? So as long as
right.
you don't want to be putting the slurry into that last manhole and clogging it all up. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think we're kind of on the same page on that. We're also going to include some other pieces just on, having frontage on a sewer, frontage on a main, how that works. We've
yeah,
been running into a lot of instances on these tiny little streets that are either getting developed or different pieces are getting redeveloped or whatever it may be. And, we have a ton of like galvanized, like long 2-inch services or long lead
yep,
services and all that type of stuff. So I'll have stuff in there on how we're going to manage all of those too once I give it some thought. But once I get those on paper, I'll be swinging back to chat with you guys on that too.
great. Yeah, in both Concord and Melrose, we did require that if you were upgrading one of those, that you had to bring it to the far side of your property line. So you're not just upgrading it just enough for you to get your connection to it, and then the next guy has to pay for it to go in front of your house
Yeah, yeah,
to their house. We waive it sometimes, but that's sort of the
yeah,
standard.
yeah. That's kind of how I was thinking for the water for sure. Unless you can demonstrate that there's no ability for a future tie-in beyond
Yeah.
your lot. So that, and we've had that happen a couple of times where I've let them stop where they were tying because, there really just isn't a way to have another house. It's like wetlands behind it or,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah, you don't want just a dead end for no reason. Yeah.
you know, so that's kind of where we are on these guys. What else
Just
you
one
got?
and if
more,
we can afford it.
I just have one more question on this one.
Sure.
Is that
Shoot.
ma that connection where the two are coming in, are they required to put a manhole, or can they put a clean out or something?
No, we were saying manhole. So typically what we allow folks to do is do a mini manhole. So it doesn't have to
Okay.
be the full size guy,
Yeah.
but something that we can really get into to if it's needed to be repaired or jetted or something.
Okay, great.
And this, I guess, just to ask the question, I don't see why anybody would do it, but if they also wanted to do an independent sewer line, they could do that as well.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I don't see
could.
In
why they
general,
would.
nobody wants to do that
Right,
though.
right, I
Yeah.
know, right. But just wanted to ask it, yeah.
Yeah, most of the time this one, Shane, it saves them a trench out in the road,
Right,
which is going to save, at the end of the day, it's going to put dollars back in your pocket. So
sure, right.
Yeah.
That's what I
So,
figured, but I just figured I'd ask as well, but yeah.
that's
yeah,
a good question.
but our intent, even if it's condoized, if it's one structure, it'll have the one service. We're not going to require them to add separate services for a duplex, triplex, or whatever ends up being a quadplex now with the with the ADUs that people can add on the back. So that's
Gotcha.
the thought process there.
Be beneficial not to corduroy every street that one of these things gets developed in.
Ideally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I said again
Yep.
in the beginning, this is very 30,000 feet with this, but we just wanted to expose you to it. Just some other things that are coming, obviously, so different sections of updates to the standards. We're also looking at putting together and formalizing a road moratorium policy. Really what this is right now after a road gets paved, there's a moratorium from anything outside of an emergency for 5 years. Every once in a while, when we're in our planning, I know it's probably pretty frustrating for Bill, we'll have somebody say, oh, but we're going to develop this parcel XYZ, and it actually causes us to have to stall. So what we were thinking about doing is putting together something formal and said, if for some reason, a private property owner or some other entity had to cut into a street that was relatively new within that 5-year period, here's the rules that you have to follow, and if they're not done, here are the consequences that may arise from that.
Yeah, problem
Yep.
is we don't have anything written on the policy. It really is just this is how we're managing it, as opposed to anything really written down that's been adopted anywhere. So, the goal would be to bring this to the council as the road commissioners and have them, adopt it after you folks bless what we're looking to do. So that's kind of where we're sitting on that.
Sounds good.
So as far as standards and everything are concerned, that's basically all of it, unless you guys have anything more. But we'll go back, take some of the notes that you guys gave us, clean it up a little bit, and then we'll give you something a little bit more formal to read and digest beforehand before we talk about it the next time.
And is irrigation review, is that talking
So
about
that's
meters again, or that's just about ownership?
no, that's something that'll end up coming up. I'm gonna try to do it a little earlier this year if we can than what we typically do, just so it's not, slammed into that 5 or 6 week window. We're trying to get everything accomplished at the same time. Really just put that out there because it's something that's coming. We'll probably visit that. Maybe we have a brief meeting before the holidays on it, just to get some feedback from you folks and what would help you guys in the decision-making process this time around. And then we'll really ramp it up probably the first of the year, just after things kind of settle down. But more just to look way out into the future.
So I wasn't able to attend the council meeting last year when they set the rates and when we had this, we had issued them our recommendations on the irrigation second meters. Did they have any appetite to pursue it further or no?
I'd have to go back and look at the meeting. I don't believe it was referenced while Ann and I were there for that.
Okay.
Whether they have the appetite or not, this is definitely, that audience out in the general public that does. And,
Yeah.
things change as time goes on. So it's good. That's the one thing. What we probably should have been doing is updating everything, biannually or triannually at a minimum. This seems to be the one subject that we do that relatively regularly. So, there's enough time has passed, where the picture may have changed, positive, or good, better, indifferent. So we would pursue that, whether or not we were asked to at this point by the council or not.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right. So aside from that, the last thing we have going on, water treatment update. So again, very high level Reader's Digest, but coming soon, that's going to impact Wakefield. There's some regulation changes surrounding PFAS, the perfluoroalkyl. I know I just butchered that, but the forever chemicals that you probably hear about in the news and things like that. What happens now is there's a threshold that we have to hit as far as testing and monitoring is concerned, and come 2029, that is actually going to be a harder benchmark to meet. One of the things we've done over the last, say, 7 months, we took, the policy and the regulation that's coming from EPA, so from the federal level, and compared that to how that affects Wakefield. And we went through a whole bunch of scenarios to determine, how are we going to meet this? What are the steps that we need, the cost associated with it, and or what are our alternatives at this point, should we not be able to? Essentially what they're doing, Shane, really, so right now the testing is at a standard in parts per trillion. So the town more or less has to be under a threshold of 20 parts per trillion, which is, about 20 drops of water, and I think Olympic-sized swimming pool. So it's very, 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 very strict and tough to meet. The 6 regulated components that fall within that in these class of chemicals, 2 of which they're going to drop down to a regulatory threshold of 4 parts per trillion. Based on our testing, that is something we've kind of hovered the line on. So, there have been tests where we've been low, there have been tests where we've been over it. And, if we're over it and something happens in 2029 when it becomes regulation, it would put us in violation. So how do we address that? So we'll send out a very detailed and technical memo on that related to it. What that'll go through is it'll give you a little bit of a background on what's about to change, how it impacts us, the timeline. If we needed to change our treatment processes, some conceptual cost estimates to that, and whether or not it's even feasible to do on our site the way that we're constructed. In addition to that, we looked at some other options. Are there any alternative sources we could use? Is, abandonment or going out of business a potential option for us too, based on, where we are and when we were brought in with the MWRA. So there'll be all those things. And then what basically this report will do is it'll boil down to a fork in the road at the end of it. And what we need to figure out is, are we going in direction to the left or the direction to the right? Because there are timelines associated that will have to hit, and we'll have to do more due diligence to get funding and different things like that, should it go one way or the other. So that's something that we'll be sending out to you guys. I'll have a forward letter in front of it to try to take some of the technical stuff and break it down. Don't take this as an insult, Shane, but for you and Chris, just to kind of make it, more apples to apples with, someone that might not be, reading water treatment magazines quite frequently. So then from there, same thing. We have what we think our opinions are the best move. We want to solicit the feedback from the board. Depending on, how that conversation goes, ultimately, we'd request that we make a recommendation. And then we'd start the whole presentation again with the recommendation from the advisory board with the town council to seek their guidance and get official directives of how the town should proceed. So all that fun and excitement there. You should
By
see
the way,
that.
I say no insult taken, by the way. The more information, the better for me. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, not at all. Maria, who was on the board before, used to say all the time, she'd always apologize for not being in the field, but it's so nice to have a perspective that is not, because
Yeah.
I know I've said it before, but sometimes we get pigeonholed and narrow focused, and we need to realize that we're speaking to more than just, it's me speaking more just Bill and Elena, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. That's true.
Joe, I might
So
have missed it, but did you say, have you hired a consultant to do that?
Yep, environmental
yes, so
partners.
Environmental partners, okay.
yep, so they've done that. The report's done. I was hoping to give it to you before this meeting, but we've been volleying back a couple of rounds of comments just to
Okay,
button it up and make sure it's tight. But you'll see all of that, and then that'll be a little bit longer conversation, I would imagine. But in one way, we're very fortunate in the situation that we're in because we have options. There are a lot of places that don't.
Yeah.
And those that don't, the only way out of it is very, very, very expensive. And rigid. So I can only sympathize for the folks that have absolutely no options, and Wakefield has a couple. So
Yeah, it's great.
yeah,
It's good.
so that's really it for the agenda. Just quick, I'm not on it, but obviously trash, so Republic's still on strike. We are getting some part-time help from them as they can get it out the doors. But for the most part, our DPW staff is out there really picking up trash and recycling or some combination of, the two, every day. I don't have any inkling on how long this may go, how long it might not. We're starting to do some contingency planning for some events that we have coming up this fall. And then God forbid, this would extend into the winter, that really puts us exposed. Because if we get an event where it snows and we have to take care of that, especially for plowing, to do that simultaneously, right now, is next to impossible, at least in the short term. So
Right.
we need to come up with, how we're going to tackle those things and what the timing sequences is. So if we're still managing this situation the way that we are, that we can make sure that, it's communicated, the trash may be delayed, or look a little bit differently, but it's because of these other things. So hopefully, they can come to some sort of middle ground soon. And we can put this behind us and carry on, but until then, we will steer the course and, make sure that none of our neighborhoods are abandoned.
Joe, I've
I
got
would add to that as well that, and just people just talking in general, and not because I'm on the advisory board, but just in general, people have been very impressed with Wakefield, right? And how we've kind of jumped in and handled this. I think really residents have been unaffected by this strike, and that's kudos to the Public Works team, really, right? I think that says a lot of, I've heard of towns that haven't had recycling since this all started, right? So Wakefield has done a fantastic job of kind of stepping up and keeping residents, able to do the same thing that they've been accustomed to. And I would also add, I think we do a great job with plowing in the winter as well, just to throw that out there.
I'll take the 2 compliments. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Well, they're
Shane,
deserved.
you stole the words right out of my mouth. That was exactly what I was going to say about the trash and recycling. I mean, really, if we didn't know that there was a strike, we
Right.
wouldn't know. We
Right.
bring our barrels out, our recycling bins out every Tuesday. They're picked up. We bring them back in. I mean, it's been really seamless, and that's been impressive. Um, I'm curious from your perspective, what is not getting done because of the resources that you're having to put on trash?
So the first week that it started, could have been the worst week ever for us because of the way the 4th of July, um,
Right.
kind of everything focuses on that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say nothing is getting deferred. It might just be slower. So typically we would have all of our line painting done that our crews do in-house, sometime in June, early July, depending on the weather. We didn't finish that till the end of August. Um, what we've done to make sure that we can kind of ration this out is everybody's got a day. So there are days that, highway staff predominantly is driving the vehicles just to keep it consistent. And get them to learn the routes, the quickest, but, it's a shared effort. So there could be someone from the cemetery working, parks, our building staff, so custodians, fleet mechanics, everybody's had their hands on it. We've tried to balance it so that nobody is more impacted than the other, or at least to, spread it out through everyone so that something doesn't have to all out together stop. Um, we were fortunate that, we have a little bit of a swell in the summertime, with temporary help from, some college students and things like that. They jumped in, they were fantastic too. Everybody really has just understood that this is something that has to get done. So I wouldn't say anything's not getting done, it just might be slower. So our response time to something, if it was normally a day or 2, it might be 3 days, depending on, what it is. It just adds another element really into how you're triaging, everything that comes in. But so far so good. And like I said, we'll steer the course, until we get relieved in some other capacity to pick it up, consistent with the level of service that the people out there expect. So.
Sounds great. And you mentioned the line painting. I've actually noticed, I think, more line painting than I've ever noticed before, this year leading up to the start of school and everything. And I also like the more prominent crosswalks, and it's looking good. It's a noticeable change. So that's been nice.
Cool. I think the crosswalks came out of the bike and ped master plan vote, right? Yeah.
It did, yeah.
So that's
So
how
we
they'll all look.
standardized it. Yeah, so that's standardized it across the town. So that's how we're going to do them all.
Yeah, they look good.
If you
Agreed.
remember
Agreed.
6, 7 years ago, we actually used to, before the bike lane conversation was, you know, into the transportation topic, full bore, or at least as prominent as it is now. We used to actually paint all of our crosswalks green.
Yeah, I remember.
But it ends up being the same color as the lane, so the laddered style end up being, I think, a good fit, for that. And they certainly are more noticeable, so that's a positive as well.
Yeah, and I think the federal guidelines now are even more strict on the colors
Yep.
that you can't paint a crosswalk green. I think it used to be sort of a you shouldn't, and now I think it's like a you shall not.
Yep.
No,
Yeah. I think, yeah, I don't even know if you can do the red anymore either, because they try to use red for the for the bus lanes now. So,
Yeah, it's funny. I had I had looked at it in reference to our rainbow crosswalk, which
yeah.
technically doesn't meet the standards anymore, but we're just gonna let it fade. We're not gonna paint over it. But I was joking with somebody that I think like the brown, yellow, and one other color are actually still compliant. But the
Oh,
green and the red and the blue, I think the blue is handicap spaces, so those are not compliant. So
yeah.
like we could keep some of the colors of the rainbow and not the others, but
Yep. So
yeah.
you're leaving out somebody if you do that, though, I think. So that's not good.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw I mean, have you, not to get on a tangent, but have you followed the controversy of the Italian
Italian, yo, yeah.
in
I saw
Newton?
that. It was pretty funny because when I said it here, I was like, well, why do we put these stars out? I mean, these aren't compliant. He
Yeah,
said, don't even touch it. I'm like, yeah, it's a good point. I sent him the article. He's like, see, I told you.
yep. So Shane, I don't know if you saw the
I
in
have
Newton,
not.
Yeah.
there's like a famous Italian pride street that has a green, white, and red center line. And they were doing other improvements, traffic calming and stuff on that road. So as part of it, they felt like they needed to really meet, the town felt like they really needed to meet the standards. So they painted over it with just a standard double yellow, and people went insane.
Bananas.
So
Yeah.
So
yeah,
where did this take place? Was this in Wakefield?
Quincy? Was it
in
Quincy?
Newton, in
Oh,
Oh,
Newton.
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 Was it Newton?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and actually, and it's funny, I was reading an article that says that if you look at the federal guideline, which is called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, in the appendix, there is actually an exception for one, I think it's red, white, and blue. I can't remember what it is. In, I think, Bristol, Rhode Island, they actually petitioned the Federal Highway Administration or whoever it is to have an exception for their center line on one particular street to be a different color. So they're allowed
Wow.
to do it, but nobody else is allowed to do it. So,
Yeah. Well, you just got to spend time to go through the process, I guess. You know?
yeah, which must be a ridiculous process, and
Oh
it's
my God,
amazing
I
that
couldn't
anyone
even.
did it.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I
The
would ask one.
transportation nerds in a room together. Are you kidding me? How do you get that approved?
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I was going to ask one thing, and again, I should probably know this. So I noticed, so with our arrows, right? Well, we're talking about painting. We have right turn and left turn, and it used to say only, and we blacked out the only, right? So now, or are we just redoing it? Is maybe that's what happened? So I noticed it used to, so now it just says left turn, and the only's been kind of painted over. Are we gonna like redo the only again? I just noticed that on some streets.
So occasionally what will happen, those will they can bleed, not bleed, but they'll run a little bit from traffic tracking them.
Okay,
Sometimes we'll get calls that say like, why are you guys, you're blacking out the markings. It's really just to kind of give it a fresh canvas underneath it.
gotcha. Makes
If you
sense.
could think of it, if something triggers you while you're out and about, where you think there was one before that got you to notice that, you can let me know and I can
All right.
probably
It
easier to
was
tell you from there, trying to simplify things and do everything, by the book. Now line painting is pretty well oiled, so it's a kit. We have it all mapped. We know what we're doing. We're out there. Avoid some of that ad hoc approach. But yeah, if you could think of one, send it
I'll let you
along.
know if I do. Yeah. And I didn't know if we had to take only away. I was like, oh, maybe you just have to say left turn and you can't
I
say
don't think
only
so.
anymore. I didn't know. So that's why I
Um,
asked. But
no, I mean, like some of these too, you could have multiple sets of arrows. You need the word only painted 12
yeah,
times on the street too. Like,
right.
at what point do you have so much on the ground where it's really kind of become an attractive nuisance?
Yeah. Fair enough. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Fun fact, Bristol, Rhode Island is when a lot of the big bands used to come to Wakefield, they'd go to Bristol in the morning. That's how they'd start their day.
Oh,
So
really? On the
that's
4th of
why
July?
Wakefield's parade is late. It was to give people going to both the time to get up here and get in
Ah,
line.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Huh,
little known fact.
yeah.
So if you're on Final Jeopardy and that comes up, think of me.
I like
Or
that.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Is that still a show? You can call me.
It is a show.
Call
It
a
is a
friend,
show.
call Joe.
The-
We're gonna phone a friend. I got
Yeah.
Joe Conway coming on.
Yeah, right. So with that, that's everything. That's everything we had for you. Like I said, deliberately high. We'll narrow it down and get more detailed for the next time. And then we'll go from there. Appreciate all the feedback on everything though. Kind of helps at least us understand like we're in the lane that we're supposed to be in with some of this stuff in our thinking. So
Yeah.
Perfect.
Shane, did you have anything else before we move to adjourn?
No, I am good.
I think what I'll end up doing, because Chris isn't here, I'll give him time to watch, and then I'll probably shoot out an email just to see what everybody's schedule is looking like. The end of the month, early October. We'll come to consensus for the next meeting that way, where he's not here to kind of chime in.
I do know last year, and again, it seems like it's the consensus this year as well. But this Monday at 5:30 seems to work. So whatever date we do, if it works for everyone, I know Mondays are crazy anyway, right? I always say just get through Monday, right? So
Exactly.
it just kind of let's just put it in, and you're in, and we've got it booked. But so
Yeah,
just a thought,
works for me too. Continues to work for me.
Okay.
Occasionally, if our meetings run really long, I
right?
I get up against other obligations that sometimes are on Mondays. But if we're usually like under an hour and a half, typically more like an hour, that's perfect for me.
I think what the plan would be is to get everything to you well in advance, at least a week ahead of time, so that you can see it, digest it, come up with whatever questions you may or may not have based on what you're reading. And then when we're sitting in this venue, we're a little bit more efficient with our time. I mean, we can take as much as we want or as little as we want, whatever you need to be as versed as you have to be to get comfortable.
Yeah, definitely that water system report, I think is going to be, as much time in advance as we can get it would be good because it sounds like that's going to be a little more hefty of a read.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
All right, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll do a motion to adjourn our meeting.
All right, and I will second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, our meeting is adjourned at 6:20 p.m.